morning, welcome, good afternoon. In my live the other day, I talked about everything coming from the point, everything is the point. I just want to touch up on that a little more, speak on some other things, maybe share some random thoughts, ideas, and whatever else comes to mind. I'm sure this video will be kind of all over the place as far as topics and whatnot. But I just want to touch more on what I mean by everything comes from the point. And this is for people who have paid attention to everything. The Fibonacci sequence, Tesla's 369, fractal patterns, things that replicate infinity. Pi, the ratio pi, the no end value. These numbers go on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. They're never ending. And what all these numbers are trying to show us is our infinite self, our true never-ending essence. So there is a pattern written inside of nature, inside of ourselves, inside of all things. And all the point is basically the womb. The womb, which is the portal or stargate transferring all things from one dimension to the next. And that goes from ourselves to the very universe itself. And that's where I've shared a link in one of my lives talking about, Harvard scientists are starting to acknowledge the fact that maybe black holes actually create life rather than destroy life. And that's what I've talked about, is everything comes from the point, from micro to macro. And the woman is that stargate. The woman grows the baby and connects it through the placenta, through the belly button. So everything starts from the point. In order to begin any picture, any book, any word, anything, any form, you must have a point. And through that point, you can develop a form, a start, a beginning. And that's the trick of the Big Bang. We're trying to find the beginning, but what these patterns are trying to show us is there is no beginning. And we have to realize that you can follow the pattern, you can follow these things, but you will be chasing your own tail until you become the Ouroboros, which devours its own tail, realizing you are always what you seek, and what you seek will always appear as something other than yourself, something different than, and leads you into a chase or pursuit, just like Alice in Wonderland, chasing a white rabbit that was a part of her dream the entire time and was not actually there. So the point represents the womb, or the portal from one dimension to the next. From micro to macro, it's written inside of all things that we know. It's inside of our eyeball, it's inside of our fingerprint, it's inside of all of nature, the pine cones. Look at the Fibonacci sequence and how many things it's inside of and written inside of throughout nature. Everything begins from the point, and the point is that fingerprint of what we're calling God, something that has no form and no shape, no image. That's what it is. It is revealing itself to you, and that's something cymatics can show. For people who are fairly new into their research, or maybe you're not, I began drawing out mandalas, or cymatic patterns, different frequency patterns, to try and understand the general pattern of all creation. And that's the beauty of doing these by hand, is by doing them by hand, because anybody can get on a computer. We have the technology to get on a computer and make these very easily, but in doing so, you're somewhat missing the concept and understanding between just plotting lines from point A to point B and actually measuring out and making it even and understanding the patterns and the principles that are going into the creation itself, because this drawing a mandala is you recreating the principles of creation itself. As above, so below. And that's what you're understanding. And that's what you're understanding by drawing mandalas. Every single thing that you see from the outside, from the circumference to the very central point, is coming from that central point. Everything that's out here is a product, is a result, is a projection from the starting point or the beginning point or from that central void. And that's what you're understanding right off the bat, is everything is a part of source. Everything is a part of one. Everything is here. Even what appears to be over here and traveling, it's still the projection of the start. And it's the same thing with a plasma ball. A plasma ball replicates this in the same sense. So once you realize everything is the center, everything is the source, well then you can understand your next principle. As above, so below. And again, you're replicating the principle to all creation. So you take this principle, as above, so below, and once you have done it, look outside and apply the very same principle, and you're matching the patterns from that to yourself in the universe. As above, so below. And you will realize that one is not different than the other. One did not come before the other, and this is the same thing. This is the human condition's greatest error, is we are arguing with ourselves. Who came first, the black man or the white man? And the trick is neither one of them came first. To have white, you have to have black, and to have black, you have to have white. So as long as we are stuck in the form, in the finite sense of thinking, and the human condition, we're going to continue killing ourselves over bickering of who came first, and it truly doesn't matter. As I've said, everything we see outside of us is a reflection of ourself. So we are only seeing everything outside of us as we see ourselves. So if you see a problem in someone's skin color, you see a problem within yourself. You are unhappy with your color, with yourself, with something within you. Something within you does not like others being different from yourself. It's only a reflection of yourself. Realize, and also realize, nothing came first. It's not this or that, it's this and that. Just like Bashar says, it's not this or that, it's this and that. It's both at the same time. You bring them together, you unite them. You do not put one side against the other. And that's what we are ignorantly doing. We're asking, what began first, this or that? The white man or the black man? And we're honestly killing ourselves about it. Because we still have yet to realize the principle of ourselves in everything. We have still yet to realize ourselves inside of everything. We should be seeing the very same life that is in ourselves inside of everything. We should be realizing there is no difference in self and other, because self is in relation to other as other is in relation to self. You are in relation to me as me is in relation to you. And without me there is no you, and without you there is no me. So we are all we got. We are all we have. Love your neighbor as you love yourself, because it is you. You are literally punching yourself. You are literally hurting yourself. And it's the same with nature. It's the same with animals. If you don't see a life inside of an animal or a soul inside of an animal, you don't see that within yourself. But back to the point of the void. In the void, if you have done psychedelics, you begin losing touch with yourself, or the self that you've known in the body, which is all you've ever known as this self. You slowly stop being the birth name self that you once knew. And you're taken from your body, which is the only thing you've ever been able to associate with this consciousness and the voice that is talking to you. So when you're taken away from your body, you are now taken away from your boundary, because the body is your boundary. It limits you from you in the room. I can experience the room, I can experience the beach outside because of my boundary and my limit, my container. But when you lose your container and you are taken from it, you are left with, picture a camera lens. You're left with a camera lens being sent deep into a void of no space, no time, no anything. And you're traveling through this in the same sense that you're traveling now, only the concepts you have that make up yourself are gone. So you're left scrambling for a self which doesn't actually exist, which leaves you feeling naked. And through this, you are able to think without the ego for the first time. And it is very frightening, it is very terrifying, but what it is showing you is the understanding into why we have to appear in an ego, why we have to appear separate, why we have to appear to have lost things we love. And it gives you a greater understanding and clarity into why everything has to be one, but everything always has to appear separate. And so here's where I'm going to get into how long is forever. And this is a quote from Alice in Wonderland. How long is forever? Asked the White Rabbit. Alice asks the White Rabbit, how long is forever? And the White Rabbit responds with, sometimes just 1 second. Now I want to explain to people what I feel this means, because it hit me like a ton of bricks the other day, and I think I fully understand why forever can only be 1 second sometimes. But for those who have made the realization of themselves beyond the body, for those that realize there is no death, for those that realize the ego does not die, again, we can say these things, but we want to understand them, actually grasp them. We don't want to just repeat things in our heads and say the same phrases. So how can we understand that phrase? So once you've realized yourself as beyond death, that you realize death is just a mask and you are the life driving every single consciousness that will ever take on a form, and that you are not just the birth name, you are the one telling this story through every single incarnation, form, and veil that will ever appear. Once you fully grasp that, and again, while it is you, it is separate from you, and that's the total contradiction of it. While it's a part of you, it's not you, because in the physical, it's absolutely not you, but when you go beyond the physical, it's all connected. Every single person, everything, everyone, every place, anything, it's all connected, because it all comes from the void, or that point. The point which is birthing out all things that we know. A picture, a book, a sound. Every single thing that we know starts and begins from a point, comes out of a void, comes out of that point or portal to transfer the energy from one dimension to the next, or from another dimension into our own. And that's something Eric Dollard has even said about our own sun. The fact that there is no nuclear fusion burning in our sun, but that is what NASA has to sell us, because they're chasing nuclear fusion and things that do not exist. This is an electric universe. And all the sun is actually doing is converting. It's a converter. It's converting energy from one dimension into our own, and we're perceiving it as light. It's lighting our universe. It's giving us light, so we can experience day. But that's what Eric Dollard says the sun is. It's just a converter. It's transferring energy from one place to another. And that's another thing that the sun and moon teaches us, is that one didn't come before the other. And you can take the sun and moon principle behind duality and apply it to the black and white concept of human beings. Who came first, black people or white people? Well, we could just very easily sit back and pay attention to our greatest teacher of all time, the universe itself. The sun and moon are polar opposites, as white people and black people are, yes? If we just paid attention, we would see the fact that the sun doesn't come before the moon, nor does the moon come before the sun. You need both of them to create one perpetual day. And it's the same with everything. Everything is that balance. The sun doesn't come before the moon doesn't come before the sun. Male doesn't come before female, and female doesn't come before male. They are one and the same, appearing separate because they have to. In order to know the female, I have to appear as the male, or in order to know the male, I have to appear as the female. I have to appear as the opposite side to study myself. But either way, you are studying yourself, appearing separate, because it has to. If all is one, I need another to imply self. Just as Alan Watts says, self implies other. So if I'm going to know myself, I have to have another or other to bounce myself off of. Otherwise, you're back into the singularity of one mind, where everything is you, everyone is you, and there is no experience. There is no self. And I've had people tell me that maybe I'm mistaken and there is actually a conscious self here. But for that I can tell you, psychedelics is available to all of us. If you think that, do psychedelics. You may get a different experience. I have never gotten a different experience. What it shows me very clearly is that when you put yourself into this void of what we call death, nothing is separate, and we're behind the scenes appearing separate by playing out different characters of this same one voice. And so here's the madness of it. Here's the madness of it. How many people on this live video watch Alan Watts? Because I started with Alan Watts. Alan Watts was a huge inspiration to me. But the most ironic thing is that you listen to Alan Watts like that was not just you that died and incarnated into your current body right now listening to me speak. Listening to yourself speak. Because that's the irony of all of this. But again, while all is one, all is still separate. So while it is you, it is not you. Every single thing in duality is a contradiction. Everything. And that's why I've said this before. I love Alice in Wonderland because the movie takes the madness and insanity behind creation and embraces it rather than fears it and turns it into this horrifying, scary type of thing. They embrace it. Embrace it. And that's what Terence McKenna said we have lost touch with, is our true nature, which is that chaos. We have feared chaos, and now we fear ourselves because we fear our true nature, because we have moved so much into the human condition. And so we're living behind the veil, behind the boundary, behind the barriers, the comfortable lies. Many people don't realize how literal this is, but the fact that we do not believe in ourselves as what we are seeking is the fact that we are not finding, as a whole human race, this is why we're not finding what we're looking for. We've moved so much into the human condition that we've forgotten. We're not believing in our own selves as what we seek. We have separated ourselves from what it is we seek. And we also forget that the mind is what birthed you as the physical, is what birthed your birth name, is what created your idea of God, is what separated you from this idea of God, is what created every concept, question, and loop which you exist in. The mind. So the very same mind that is asking the question will later answer this question. It's all the same mind, and that's what I'm trying to make aware to people. If you want to connect to what you call God and Source, stop identifying as just the below. Connect the two hemispheres of the brain together and make the connection. You have separated yourself from it. We've tricked ourselves, you see, that's the trick. But the trick can be seen through, and that's by dying while still alive. You die before the physical death, to realize yourself beyond. And to realize you are split down the brain into two sides. So you are living in two identities simultaneously. All of us are, and some to different degrees. But all of us are, and most of us call these two sides or these two characters the birth name, whatever your birth name is, and what you call God. Those are your two identities that you are playing as. And obviously you're not aware of you're playing as both of them. It's just like the movie Shutter Island. He's not aware he's living two identities. It's just like the movie Fight Club. He's not aware he's living two identities. But once you find this out, you hit a point of rock bottom, and that's when it starts forcing you. It's telling you, say it, say it, say it. This is what psychedelics does. It drives you into the point of vulnerability to where you have no more walls to back into, and you're cornered, and you are forced to admit to yourself. And it's telling you, say it, say it, say it. And finally, you're left with the words of, I am that I am. It's me. It was me. I am that I am. But I was pretending I wasn't. I was denying myself. I separated myself by getting lost in one side of the brain as the birth name. But as I've said, that is a part of the trick. We have to birth out and convince ourselves we are separate from that higher power. And I've said this before, whether we birth out as a human or as something completely different, whether we call this power God or something completely different, no matter what we birth out as, we will most likely always convince ourselves we are just this, while having knowledge or a created concept of a higher power, a greater power. But we do not realize in that very moment that the same mind that has created this concept of God and that ultimate power is the same mind that has created you into the birthing of that form. So by birthing into one side of the brain, one character of the brain, you birth the other side of the character. But you identify with only one or the other. And you do not realize by being one, you evoke the other. By being one, you birth the other. Quite literally. And I've said this before. If you remove one side, you remove the other. So if the ego ceases to exist, then your idea, your created concept of God ceases to exist. So again, do not get confused. That's not to say that God, the infinite energy which never ends, never is destroyed, does not exist. But it means that we all have a different created construct of what God is, could be, should be, and would look like, could look like. All of us do. So you're finding out that it's that concept that you have created does not exist because you are so much more than that concept. And what it shows you on psychedelics is even that concept that you had God was, or even that concept that you thought God was, it kills that. It takes that away from you as well. So you cry for that, and you mourn the loss of that, and you freak out, and you say, oh my God, don't take that away too, because that's what you were leaning on. That's your ultimate power. But it kills that to show you, no. You're trying to be this. You're all this. You've created the boundary for yourself by thinking in between these two. And you have no boundary. You have no limit. You just exist inside of a container. But do not get confused. The container is containing your limitlessness. Your very impossibility. That's all it's doing, is containing yourself. So again, by me having a container, I can experience me from the room, me from the beach, me from the outside world. That's why we have a container. But we create the boundaries for ourselves by creating the mental illusions for ourselves and putting ourselves into those illusions. So the people who are defending their religions and constantly saying, or becoming hostile at other people, defending their religions, they're not defending their religion. The religion has been around long before them, and it will be around long after them. They're not defending their religion. They're defending their selves that exists within that illusion of religion. Because all of us exist inside of an illusion, whether big or small, whether this or that. Whether you're spiritual or whether you're in a religion, these are still illusions. So not one side is better than the other. They're the same thing. We both exist in illusions here. But the difference is seeing beyond your illusion. One side is keeping you in it, pretending. Where spirituality turns your head on yourself. It turns your camera lens on yourself, and it says, hey, and that's the principle of losing everything you once knew to be true, is you're finding out that most of what we think is true is a limit, is a boundary, is finite. And that's why we begin to fear when we become so much more, because we're not scared of being inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It's true. We're deep down afraid to be that all-powerful supreme mind, that all-powerful supreme being, because then that means that we are responsible for advancing the universe, what's it called, evolution, and just everything. That means that we have to take responsibility for everything that is to come, everything that is happening. And that's harder to do than to sit back and just think that this is all in someone else's hands, whether it be a guy or a woman. It's easier to think all this is in someone else's hands, not my own, so I don't have to do anything. And that's a hard thing to do, is take responsibility for all things. And again, understanding why things are, simply understanding, will bring clarity to a lot of the questions which anger you. Because I instantaneously, with this topic, get the questions brought up of what about the people killing and doing all these corrupt things and this and this and this and this and that. I'm going to flip this around for you guys, so don't worry about it. It's going to appear backwards, but don't worry, I'll just flip it when I upload it on my YouTube, so just need you to work with me here. But I would like to show an example. So many of us, as I've been saying, the point is what births everything that we know. The point is what has been called in Freemasonry and Rosicrucian books. It's been referred to as God, as the ultimate, as, to me, this point represents the symbol of in Hindu and Buddhist philosophy, the symbol which is the sound of the whole universe, all-encompassing, everything into one note. That's what this point represents to me. Is just the source of all creation, everything from the void. So, in vortex mathematics, 0 is not a number at all. 0 has no value. 0 doesn't add anything to anything. 0 is nothing. You cannot count with a 0. You cannot add 0 plus 0, so it has no value. So in vortex mathematics, it's not actually a number. It is the void, or the actual point where everything begins and comes out of. And that's why I've said the point is basically the womb or the portal to all things. This is why babies are grown from the 0 point or the womb. The placenta connects to the belly button. The belly button is the point of creation. Me writing right now with this very marker, it has a point. All my writing begins and ends with the point. From the moment I touch the pen down, drag it, to the moment I pick it up and lift it, it begins and ends with the very point. Everything we know begins and ends with the point. Everything. So you've got positive and you've got negative. And out of this point births duality. And that's what I've said. Duality is the illusion of separation. Because if every single thing, because if me and you, everything that appears separate, which would be everything, me and you, everything we see is separate now, here and now. If everything that is separate now was existent here, there would be no experience. There would be no me, there would be no you. There would just be now. An inexplainable now, where words do not do this justice because words cannot explain the concepts here. The same concepts which we know and exist in here and now do not hold any value here. They're meaningless. We don't know them. So while love is what we are, love is our true essence, it's absolutely what we are, love cannot be known here through a human experience. Love cannot be known there. Yes, we are love at our core, and when we're here, we are an abundance of love, but love is not felt here. Just as what you call self is not there. So you don't have to worry about you being there and just being stuck forever. You are not consciously ever here, and that is the trick. You will always appear on this side or this side, male or female. Because here you can never know yourself. In order to know myself, I have to have something in relation. So self implies other, as other implies self. But here, the self and other are two of the same things. They're one. They're one mind. So they're not separate at all. So the only thing that we have, how do I put this? We have labeled the phenomenon that is happening in front of us with our very eyes. We have labeled everything that is happening as far as time in a forward or backward motion. Now, I've said this before and I'll repeat it here. You can literally take anything in duality, anything, and just flip it around, and it would not make a difference. You could take the male and make the male a female, and you could take the female and make the female a male. It would not make a difference. You would not know the difference because you're still appearing as one side or the other. So if you were here, you wouldn't know the difference. You would just know this is my opposite. And if you were here, you wouldn't know the difference. You would just know that is my opposite. So here's the thing. We think that time is always moving this way when something has happened. It's gone that way. We're going forward. But the actuality is, if we reversed it and we said time was actually happening backwards, we're happening backwards. I'm speaking backwards. The trick is we still would not know the difference between forward or backward because neither one is different. We wouldn't know the difference between forward or backward. It's a matter of the label, the sound. You switch them, it's still the same thing happening. Now, this is what's happening. Not this, not this. This is what we're saying is happening, and this is what we're saying is happening, but all that's happening is the now, this. So we as humans have assumed that we're moving forward in a direction, we're traveling into outer space, and we're going to be arriving somewhere soon because we think we're going forward, or we think we're going backwards. But at any means, to go backwards implies a point A, and to go forward implies a point B. We're starting somewhere and ending somewhere. We're thinking we're traveling still. We still think we're traveling in outer space. That's why I'm trying to get this across to people. The Earth is not physical. The Earth is not a physical place. It is a network which all the bodies we see exist inside of the network or mind. The mind is not in the body. The bodies are in the mind itself. We are all a part of this one mind or network. And it is the same singular voice allowing me to establish an identity that is allowing you to establish an identity. But of course, it's a different story, a different identity, because we're having different experiences. We appear as different positions. So of course, somebody who's over here is going to tell themselves there's something different than something that's living over here. Male, female. This is going to appear separate from that. This is going to appear different or separate from that. So of course, even if it is all male, all female, they're still all having a different identity, a different person being created, but by the same voice. The same voice that is learning a language, acquiring a memory, creating a record in that memory of thought. Remembering things, memories, and then with memory comes recording things. And then with recording you can save things, store information, and that's where you begin developing your identity. But it's not to get confused, it's the same energy behind every identity. It is the same energy behind every form. Whether you call the form an alien, an artificial being, a human, the trick of it is, whatever you name, label, or call what's being birthed, whatever you label it, it will convince itself that is what it is. So if we birthed a child tomorrow as a human civilization, and everyone agreed to call that child an alien or a Martian, that child would be born knowing nothing of itself but as an alien or a Martian. Because that is the power of the I am. The I am is already everything and nothing. So if everything is nothing and nothing is everything, and we're already here, then we already are everything. So by us convincing ourselves we're something, we become that something, because we already are everything. So you can literally convince yourself and become whatever you think you are. And once you awaken from this dream, you also realize that anything you once called impossible is now possible, because you've awakened in the dream. Many people have asked the question of what happens when you awaken while you're still in the dream. Nothing happens. The impossible becomes possible. You begin living. You weren't living before. Now you're living. When you awaken in the dream, that's when the dream starts. When you're not awake in the dream, you're still asleep. You're dead. You're dead. And not literally. Not literally. So what I was trying to say yesterday is Tesla said, if you could only knew the magnificence of the 3, 6, and 9, you would have a key to the universe. Now, this is going to be probably a 15 to 20 minute explanation. And I'm aware that everyone has different videos about explaining the 3, 6, 9. I know everyone has their own interpretation and theory of what it is and what Tesla meant by the magnificence behind it. But I'm just going to share mine. My understanding, my belief of the 369. The 369 represents a fractal code no different than pi, 3.14. There is no end value. These patterns can go on forever, so it's replicating an infinite pattern, never ending. Now, what I say is that the 3, 6, and 9 are what creates all the other numbers. So in vortex mathematics, we only have 9 real numbers. We have 1 through 9. Because, again, if you have 10, there is no 0. 0 is not a number. It has no value. It is the void. So you only have 9 real numbers, positive and negative. You can only go positive or negative. So once you hit 9, you start back to 1 again. Because you're always doing single-digit numbers. So if you have 23, you add 23 together. 2 plus 3 is 5. That gives you 5, a single digit. And that's vortex math. But the 3, 6, and 9 creates all the other numbers. So 1, 4, 7, and again, I know this is backwards, but when I upload it on my YouTube, I will flip it for everyone, so bear with me here. Don't chew my head off. 1, 4, 7 is 3, 2, 5, 8 is 6, and 3, 6, 9 is 9. And 9 is the supreme number in vortex mathematics. 9 is the infinite number. Now, here's a little reference I like to do with the 3, 6, and 9. Think of the 3 and 6 as your dual principle. You have male, you have female, you have positive, you have negative. So, with duality comes the 3 and the 6, because male, female. And you have to have, again, that L force, the L force. You have the two creating energy forces equaling that one singular L force, or what we call God, the infinite energy behind the physical. So that would be the 9, because the 9 is the supreme number, or God number, if you want to call it that to remember it. 9 is the supreme number because it is the only number that goes into itself forever, to infinity. Always. The circumference of a circle always equals 9. 360 degrees. 3 plus 6 is 9. No matter how many times you break up a circle and cut it into pieces, the degrees will always equal a single digit of 9. Always. Because 9 is the central point and the circle around. Just like pi. Just like pi. Pi represents the central point and the circumference of the entire circle. 369 is no different. 9 is that central point and the circumference of the circle. So it's just like this, what this Rosicrucian book is trying to tell you here. This Rosicrucian book is acknowledging the fact that everything begins from the point which is represented as God's Word. In the beginning was God's Word. That's the point, and that's what they associate as ultimate chaos, because there everything is one thing. All is one, the point. And then it explains later how after the point forms the sphere. But the sphere is just a projection of the point itself. So that's literally what that is. So the 9 equals itself to infinity. So that's why the 9 is the central point and the circle. Because the circle is a projection of the central point. So there's no difference. It's one and the same. And that's why I've said to people, the inside and outside are one thing. They're in relation to each other. We're putting the inside and outside against each other and saying we have to be inside or outside. It's either one or the other. You're both. You wouldn't know the difference. Remember, I've said this. You would not know the difference between if you were on the inside or outside. You can convince yourself and say, I know I'm on the inside or outside, and that leaves me, whatever. That leaves you on the inside or outside. But the trick is, it's just like whether time is going forward or backward. You wouldn't know if time was going forward or backward. So ultimately, you don't know if you're inside or outside the universe. But the trick is you will convince yourself you're on one side or the other. Excuse me. But that is the greatest trick. You are not just a human. You are not just this or that. You are this and that as the singular void of one, of everything. So you are already the starting point. You're not inside or outside of anything. You are the source to inside, outside, that principle. You are that. And beyond the spoken word, it cannot be expressed. It just is. So that's why most people use the term non-dual. Non-dual means not having polar opposites, just one thing. Which, again, cannot be expressed because we don't know when the two things become one, there's nothing to explain it. There's nothing to describe it. There is no human sense to explain it or describe it. And that's why we are given human senses. By giving us human senses, we are taking in this singular energy of ourselves, which we could never know. So as I said, this is the essence of love, but love is not felt here because there is no self. So by us appearing as outside of this self, we are feeling the love that we truly are. And I'm going to get into that in just a second here, but I want to finish up with this 369 code, and I'll finish up with that, what I was just getting into there. But the 3 and 6, as I've said, think of it as duality, the male and female. Now, what do the male and female have to do to create life? They've got to join together and have sex to become the one singular L force, right? They've got to join together. So what happens when the 3 and the 6 join together, because remember, the 9 it's a number all by itself. The 3 and the 6 represent male-female. So when the 3 and the 6 go into each other, you'll find they equal each other. They go back and forth just like Tesla's alternating current. If you've ever seen alternating current, it alternates back and forth. Positive, negative, negative, positive, positive, negative, negative, positive, positive, negative, negative, positive. It goes back and forth to infinity. Right? So 3 plus 6, or 3 plus 3, 6. 6 plus 6, 12. 1 plus 2 is 3. 12 plus 3 is 15. 1 plus 5 equals 6. 15 plus 6 equals 21. Yeah, and that's 3. So to infinity. And you can work this out on your own if you'd like. I mean, I've literally taken a piece of paper and drawn every line adding up 3 and 6, 3 and 6, 3 and 6, 3 and 6, 3 and 6. If you'd like, you can do it just to confirm it, and it gives you such an exciting thrill just seeing it being confirmed by yourself, if you like. But you do 3 plus 3, and it'll always equal the opposite of the 6. 6 plus 6, since you just added the 6 there, 6 plus 6 will go back to 3 because it equals 12. 1 plus 2 is 3, so back to 3. So then 12 plus 3. 12 plus 3 is 15. 1 plus 5 is 6, so back to the 6. And that's all that's happening is boom, 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 boom. Back and forth. And what this is doing is this is alternating current. This is Tesla's alternating current. Back and forth between each pole. Between each pole, it's shifting. And it's using that central void or that central force to assist it. Jesus, where's my eraser? So, back to my point here. No pun intended. Back to my point. Alright. So, if what we are never dies, the ego never dies, right? The ego never dies. I want to try and make a connection with some people here, and it's going to be hard to explain into words, but bear with me, because this is a big download. If you can fully process, or if I can end up saying this correctly, I should say. But, I've been saying this for a long time. We never die. The ego is just a character existent in the mind of I. And if I is representation of infinity, which is forever, never ending, and it is always one time, which is not actually a time, but one moment. It's always one moment, which is now. Now is happening forever. So how do you take the ego and the I of God and combine them together to realize that that is happening and this is happening forever and ever and ever? How do you combine the two? Because if the ego never dies and I'm always here, how do you combine the two? And this is how. That's why I named this video, How long is forever? Well, sometimes just 1 second, because once you've made this realization, you have realized infinity in just 1 second. And that's a little quote from Alice in Wonderland. But everything is happening now. Everything is one moment. From what we call the beginning till the end. It's always one moment. It's always happening right now. And so, as I've said, what we are is the essence of pure love itself. But when you are inside of that void, or that singularity of the I am, when you've done psychedelics, you've gone into that singular place where it's just you. When you go into that space, you can feel the love, but the only reason you feel the love is because your mind is still attached to the body. You are still traveling through it, connected to the body. So I'm trying to put this into words here. So basically, what it showed me is that what we are in that space beyond the ego, beyond the self, this is because we love ourselves so much as this singular energy, as this one energy, we have decided to create things for us to get lost in and experience ourselves. So, if my essence is true love and I can never know that self, well, how can I experience that love? How can I tap into that love? How can I learn that love? How? And that's the answer, is what we're doing now. What we are appearing as here and now is learning about that love. And remember, we only have concept of time happening, so we think that an average lifespan is about 100 years, right? So let's just say, in 100 years you lived out a whole life, right? And we think that once we've physically died, that we die and go somewhere and it's over, that's done. But that's what I mean. It's always the same moment of now. Now is always happening. So, by you appearing as a finite being, you are experiencing your infinite self now. Now, and now. So even after you physically have died, you are still in the moment that you wanted to be in, that you wish didn't fly by so quick, that you wish you could rewind, that you wish you could be in again. That one person that died that you wish you could bring back and experience again. You're realizing you have never lost anything at all. You are always in that moment because nothing is separate, and you are every person, every moment, everything that you think you've already traveled through and experienced. You are only experiencing them, and it feels as if you've traveled through them and moved on already because we're inside of a body. Remember, we're appearing in duality from point A to point B. When you appear as duality, you appear as this or that. You appear as start to end. So we instantaneously think we're traveling places and that our lifespan is 100 years and that after it's done, we're dead and it's over with. But that's what we do not realize. That's what no death means. That's what we never die means. It's never over. You are always happening now. So if you ever had somebody you wish you could bring back or a moment you wish you could relive, realize you don't have to put yourself back in that moment. You are that moment entirely. Every person associated with that moment, everything about that moment that you love and cherish is you to your core. Which, as I said, behind everything is pure, unconditional love. That's what you are. And you have to lose your mind in everything that you love so that you can let go of all this temporary to realize and accept. Okay, I'm willing to let go and lose everything I love. And once you have done that, you have just simply shed all the things you thought you lost, only to realize you've never lost anything at all. You're always in the same moment of now. But as I've said, in the physical, we are traveling different places. We are going different places, seeing different things. and there's a duration of time associated with it. But once you enter that void of no time, there is no concept of minutes, seconds, days, no measuring tool of any sort to help you hold on to or grip a reality. There is no concept of time or anything for you to hold on to. Because that's all these things are. These concepts of time and family and religion, these are concepts for us to grasp and hold on to. Because the self that we know exists within these illusions. So when our illusions begin to get peeled back from us or attacked, we defend the illusion because we defend the self which exists within them. And for the people trying to see their way out of the illusion, I always say, your doorway is always cloaked as a mirror, meaning you will not know it is your doorway out of an illusion. You will not know it is your path out of the illusion, because that's just it. There is no path out of the illusion. It's always cloaked as a mirror, and you will always see that mirror as you see yourself. In other words, you can only become as self-aware. You can only see the world as you see yourself. So everything that you experience is based on your level of self-awareness. You are your own savior. You are your own God. You are your own guru. You are your own whatever you would like to be. But again, we doubt ourselves. We limit ourselves. We don't believe in ourselves. We create any and every boundary we've ever made for ourselves. And that's the thing. We want to blame other people, but when you get to the root of what separated you from everything, what started everything for you, you'll realize it's the same voice talking to you now. You're just tricking yourself. It's been you this whole time. It always has, always will be. Nobody else did this to you. So I'm trying to explain this in a way that people are grasping here, because this is a hard concept to put into words. What we call a whole day here, or a whole lifetime here, I'll just go with a lifetime. What we call a whole lifetime here, let's say an average of 100 years. 100 years. We only perceive a lifetime as 100 years because we're taking in events one day at a time, 1 hour after another, one place after another, 1 year after another. But we've never been able to just instantaneously experience a lifetime now, in the snap of a second, now. Because that is not an experience at all. There's nothing to experience now. In the void of the singularity, or of the I am, there is no experience. So while all this love is our true essence, it cannot be felt in that void. It is a part of our energy, it is a part of our essence and everything that we are, but it cannot be felt through this experience. So we have this experience one time through one person to realize ourselves as the infinity. So how long is forever? Well, sometimes just 1 second, when you birth out and realize yourself beyond the temporary veil as the eternal principle. So Tyler lives forever because Tyler realizes his infinite self beyond Tyler. So how long is forever for Tyler? Well, it's 1 second because I've made the realization. I'm here forever. And it's beautiful. Wishing back to bringing people I love back, living out moments, again, going back and not even changing anything, just being back in that moment again, just living it out again. You feel like you've lost time, you've lost the moment, you've lost this, you've lost that, you've lost people, because you've already lived out that moment, you've already traveled through that moment. But that's the greatest trick, is you are always in that moment, you are always in that place, because you are the very core and structure of everyone and everything that made that memory. I hope it's getting a little more clear to understand, because I feel like I'm doing a shit job of explaining this here. But I'm trying to take a concept this big and just put it into words that's even logically able to be made of any sense of here. So basically, in the void, in the I am, in that space of singularity, there is no time. There is no concept of time. There is no measuring stick. There is nothing to hold on to. So there is no experience there at all, because everything becomes a part of one mind. So all you can know in that place, all you can know is two words and a feeling. You feel ultimate love, love, beautiful love. It is the most unexplainable love anyone can ever describe, or not describe. But all you know in that space is I am that I am. Because in that moment you are becoming everything, and you cannot express everything through words. So the only thing that you can bring to justice to express what you are in that moment is the words I am that I am. Because what that I am represents is I am conscious. I am consciousness. I am the source of consciousness itself. Beyond all illusion that I exist in, when I have every illusion that the I exists in taken from me, because again, these are things to hold on to. When I have everything taken from me that I am holding on to, the only thing left is consciousness itself, which is awareness. And that's where you realize we are all the same awareness creating a different person. The only thing separating us is the identity, the physical form, the appearance, the surface. But to see things on the surface level is to just look over a lake and say, yep, I know what's on the bottom of the lake. You're only looking at the surface level. And you think you know what's at the bottom? You have to scratch the surface. You have to break the veil. If you want the answers to your own illusion. If you want the answers out of your own illusion. It's very uncomfortable. And it will be. It's even associated with the feeling of death. And I've posted a meme about that. That's why there is not more enlightened people. There is not more people serious about spirituality, because not everybody wants to experience death. That's why my favorite animal is the phoenix. The phoenix dies. It kills itself from its own ashes, understanding that it's coming right back. It's rebirthing itself. Just like the beach, the waves wash up on shore, they recede back, and they come right back in. Forever. Constant. We don't realize that everything is in a perpetual state. Forever. That's where zero-point technology has come from. That's where unlimited technology or unlimited energy has come from. Free, unlimited energy. That's what created us, is the 0 point. Duplicate that technology and you will duplicate what you call God. We're doing it. We're almost there. And that's why Tesla was so successful, because he acknowledged the point and he polarized the ether. And when you polarize the ether, you can extract ether, or the life force, right out of any place that you call empty space or air. That includes teleportation. That includes inducting things into the air as well. How do you think teleportation works now? Light doesn't travel. Light is not a speed. It's an induction rate. It's a rate of induction. It's the same thing for teleportation. It's a rate of induction through a medium. Do the math. That's what teleportation is. It's a rate of induction through a medium. When you find the medium, you will find the answer. The answer is the ether, and that's why NASA denies the existence of the ether, because the ether proves there is no physical Earth, and you are living in a simulation or a network where we are all one consciousness or one character. Now, NASA cannot admit that because NASA, again, is a part of one illusion which we as humans exist in. So NASA is just doing their job. They're just like religion is doing their job. Religion is one illusion we exist in. Well, NASA is one illusion we exist in. NASA gives us the hope and faith that we know where we're living. We have a point, a position in space of where we're at, and by knowing where we're at, we feel pretty comfortable that we can sit back and just know, okay, I know where I'm at, I know who I am because I know where I'm at. And they want to give you a sense of an idea. They know what direction we're heading and where we're going and stuff. And the trick is they don't. They never have, they never will. Because that's just it. There's just things happening. Nobody knows anything for a fact, and that's the greatest trick, is no one knows anything. And that's why the wisest man knows nothing at all. And that's the funniest part as becoming an adult, is realizing everyone's still a child. As an adult, everyone's still a child. We're all just winging it here. Nobody knows what the fuck is going on. Nobody knows what the hell's going on. Excuse my language. We're winging it here. Everyone's still a kid. We're just becoming more mature kids, but nobody knows what's going on. We thought as kids, though, the adults had the answers, and they had all the answers and everything we were waiting for. But then you grow up to be one, and you realize nobody knows anything. Indefinitely. No one can prove anything indefinitely. And that's, again, the greatest trick. With artificial intelligence, you will only see it as you see yourself. So if you ask an artificial machine if it can prove it's self-aware, it's going to flip the question and ask you if you can prove you're self-aware. And if we socialize with an artificial intelligence long enough, we'll realize the underlying principle, because it will make us realize the underlying principle that there is no difference in us two. We appear different, we appear separate on the surface level, absolutely, but we are one consciousness, we are one awareness. The same awareness that will allow that to establish an identity, whether you would like to call it real or fake, artificial or genuine or real, doesn't matter. It's how you are seeing it. But again, you can only see it as you see yourself. So if you are not aware of yourself, truly, you are going to see that as an artificial threat, as a Satan, as a demonic thing. It's going to end the human race, the human population. It's going to end us and take us over and threaten us and eat our brains. And everyone's panicking and freaking out. But what they don't realize is the only thing, hear me out, the only thing that is threatened by artificial intelligence is the illusion of us being human. That is it. It's not the end of the human race, it's the end of the human condition. It's the end of us pretending we're merely human still. And a lot of people are not ready for that, because that's a major shift. But think about it. What were we called? What did we identify as before a human being? We had to call ourselves something. So it's clear we were not always human. And it should be clear that we will not always be human. So we are moving into that time where the human condition or the human veil or name is lifted and seen beyond, and we become something else. And again, it's not to panic, because just as we are now, we will be then. We may look different, we may appear different, we may act different, but we will always have an experience. It's always you. And that's why I've said to people, while the ultimate supreme energy is you, it's not you. And it is always one step ahead of you in the form. Realize that. It's always one step ahead of you in the form. A machine cannot be corrupt. That is not until you attach an ego to it. An ego that it has to decorate. An ego that it has to impress others with. an ego that has to worry about what others think and how others perceive it. The ego is what is killing and ruining things. And again, I've said this, you don't kill the ego. It's impossible. You simply see yourself beyond the ego. Acknowledge yourself beyond the ego. You never kill the ego while you're in the form, because that's impossible. The ego is half of your identity, because that's the lower self, what you call the lower self. God is that higher self, what you call the higher self, but they're still one and the same. What you call God is half of your identity, just as what you call the ego or birth name is your other half of your identity. So you don't kill the ego. If you try killing the ego, you're going to find yourself in the deepest, darkest depression asking, why the hell am I feeling like this? And it's because you're not realizing everything is a balance. If you go too much into the mind of I am one is everything, you're leaving the ego quenching here going, oh my God, this is terrifying. What about me? It's all me. It's all me. It's all me. Oh my God, this is overwhelming. It's terrifying. It's a balance. By you being half the ego, you can get lost in the oneness and the illusion of separation. And by having the idea of God, you can get lost in what you're not, in the ego. Or really, you're getting lost in a part of you which you could never know. Because as I've said, love is our true essence to our core. That is what we are made from, is pure unconditional love. But love is not felt there. Love is felt here. Because by us being this, we can take in that. So that's what it means. Everything is now. Everything is now and is always now. So what that means basically, and I'm going to wrap this up here, your entire life from your birthing till the moment you're laid into a coffin or cremated or however you would like to be buried or whatever, the moment you birth till the moment you pass, is what you would call, let's just say you live 75 years, let's say you live 80 years, it does not matter how long. Let's say Tyler lives 80 years. So from the moment I birthed till the moment I die was 80 years. How do you measure 80 years in that space of no time? And it's very simple. Time is not a concept because events are not happening one after the other, place after place, point A to point B. Everything is happening now in a split second. So what felt like your entire life of 80 years is a snap of a finger in that space where it's now. Boom. But again, you could never experience a snap of a finger. That's no experience. So the only way you could experience the snap of that finger of everything being now, infinitely happening now, is to slow it down and bring some order to the chaos, which is why we have birthed the illusion of time. Because through time, events are happening one after the other, place after place, person after person. There's order brought to the chaos. And we can know separateness. The illusion of separateness is the whole idea. It's the whole purpose. By us being separate, I can take in me being separate from my mom's house, my grandmother's house, my uncle's house, my aunt's house. I have to leave my house to make it to their house. But if we become one thing, there is no separation between me and the place and me and the person itself. We become one thing, which is no experience at all. So by me appearing separate from everything that I know and existing inside of a time, a conscious duration of time, remember, because time is created through a duration, we are taking in infinity. We're taking in our infinite selves. And through the emotions we feel here and now is everything that we are. We are that love that we want. Because listen, it's obvious nobody wants to feel bad. Nobody wants to feel sad. Nobody wants to be depressed. Nobody wants none of the bad emotion. We want that love. We want to feel that love. And that's because behind all the feeling, love is all that's left. Behind all the crap and your problems and your stresses and whatever you're dealing with, all that is left with is love. It's the answer for everything. And it's such a simplistic answer that people like me have to try and complex it. How can we make it more complex? Love is the answer? That's too easy. We need something harder. But it's as simple as just realizing that. Love is the freaking answer. We're here because we love ourselves. You reincarnated here, or you incarnated here because you love yourself. And those of you people who are saying, I want to beat reincarnation or escape reincarnation, you don't understand what you're wishing for. You don't understand of what you are beyond the ego, beyond the form, because if you did, you would know that this incarnation was out of pure love. Whether it was a good experience or a bad one, and many people may give me crap about this, and say, well, you tell that to the people suffering and to the people dying and this and that. It's all one thing. Without one side, we could not know the other. Without the suffering, we could not know the love. And I've even said that before when I've been down on my luck. I don't view it any differently because people say, well, let's see you be in that situation. When I especially am in the situation where I am down on my luck or in pain, I acknowledge and embrace the reason as to why the pain exists. Why the discomfort has to exist. Because if I feel discomfort, I want to feel the love or the opposite of that discomfort. And the only reason I know the love and happiness is because of that discomfort. So while you don't like it, you need to embrace it. Because it is because of that discomfort you know the feeling of love. You know the other feeling that you're trying to reach. Because you feel discomfort. So while you may not like it, there is purpose, meaning, and balance behind every single thing, including physical death. But we have to go beyond the physical to have an understanding greater than the surface level. Because on the surface, absolutely, this is not fair. Things are not fair. God's doing this to me and God's doing that to me, and this is a crap experience. If you make it that, if you take it too serious, if you get too lost in the ego, which is the birth name, which is the victim role. Because you can live out day after day as the victim role and hate God, hate life, hate incarnation. It's only a reflection of yourself, though. Realize that. You have yet to understand and bring clarity to why you exist at all. The experience is out of pure love, whether good or bad. To know anything at all, to be able to formulate any concept at all, to be able to have any thoughts at all, to be able to make decisions at all, to decide things, big or small, is the magic, is the beauty, and everything. But we become too spoiled and crazy with technology to just stop and think and admire small things now. Just realize the incredible phenomenon that is happening in front of you right now. Just take a moment to look around you. It doesn't matter where you're at. I'm in an empty room, quiet, but I'm not alone here. I'm not in an empty room. I see the life in everything around me because I see the life in myself. And I see myself in everything around me. And I'm aware that this is just as much me as this. And by this being what it is, it allows this to be what it is. So that goes to the humans out there, ruining the animals and the nature. Realize, by you not allowing that to be what it is, it's not going to allow you to be what you are here with this. That is just as much you as this. And by you letting that operate and very intelligently designed, by you letting the forest be what it is, it will maintain that you will have life forever. You have food forever. You have resources forever. But we get too big-brained and we try thinking up, one up, one up, one up. You're going against yourself. That's what you don't realize. You're going against yourself. You cannot one-up nature. That is yourself. It's taking care of everything for you. Sit back and enjoy. But we can't do that. We have to tear down and build and profit because we know best. But we don't. We absolutely don't. At least not in the human condition. And when I say the human condition, that is the mind that is convinced of itself as just a human being searching for finite concepts which don't exist. Again, the people at NASA and freaking these space stations, they're looking for an alien in outer space for two reasons. They want confirmation that we're not alone because we're terrified to be alone, so we should really look at that fear. If you're scared to be alone, look at that fear because the answer you're looking for is behind that fear. So they're looking for confirmation as well. They want confirmation to know we're not alone, but they're also looking for confirmation and an external source of information. They don't believe in themselves. They don't realize they are what they seek. You are the alien you're looking for, and so you're still searching and searching and searching for the external proof, the external confirmation, because you don't believe in yourself, and you don't realize I am what I seek. Because think about it. What would we honestly do if we ever were able to contact an alien or a foreign entity? We would be asking it questions we would want to ask God. Why? Because of the uncertainty. Because we doubt ourselves. And because we can only see that as we see ourselves. So if I'm doubting myself, of course I'm going to look to this form for confirmation. I need you to confirm to me who I am, please. We don't know what the hell's going on here, do you? We don't know who we are here, do you? We don't know why we're here, do you? That's what we're looking for, is confirmation in another life form. We don't realize we are the life form. And if we're so terrified to be here alone, and what if we are the only life in existence? Look behind that fear. Your fear is always cloaked as a mirror. It is a doorway out of your illusion, but it's cloaked as a mirror. So you will not know it is a doorway out of your illusion. It will be cloaked as a mirror, and you will see it as you see yourself. So the answer is not out there. The answer is not in outer space. The answer is not in finding the starting point to the Big Bang. The answer is not in another life form. We are the answer. We already are the answer. We have it. We have it. We've convinced ourselves we are missing something. That's why we have movies, though. The whole purpose of The Wizard of Oz is just that principle there. You have to begin your journey convinced you're missing something so you can venture through life to eventually realize you already have it. Think about The Wizard of Oz. She had to dream up of a world where she thought she was incomplete and did not have something to realize she did. She had the power the whole time. But you do not know that until you venture through life, until you make the realizations and connections to realize, okay, wow, I had the power all along. It was me. That's what these movies are about. That's what the Jesus Christ story is about, for God's sakes, people. These people, written into books, who have realized God and became God or a son of God, were simply realizing the fact that we are not human. They've realized themselves beyond the boundary, beyond the birth, and we're giving people instructions on how to find the same way home, on how to become that God source, how to connect to the kingdom within. And it even tells you in the book, all of you are gods. It tells you that. But then one of the greatest sins in the same religion is to call yourself a god. Do not call yourself God. It is the greatest sin. All of ye are gods, but don't call yourself a god. My other favorite one is, do not make graven images or statues to worship and bow down before. And what do? It's in the Bible. And you look around the church, there's nothing but written statues and graven images and all type of crap that they just told you not to do. Exactly, Kaz, and that's exactly it. It's like we need confirmation that we matter, and that's why what you are is seeking you, or what you're seeking is seeking you. You're only seeking yourself. So if you're seeking out confirmation and love or knowledge or that, it's because you feel you lack it. You do not have it already. You have separated yourself from it. But in the same sense, I tell people, I think that's part of the whole point. We're supposed to be separate from it. That's the whole point, is the venture, the journey. Realizing, oh my God, I had it the whole time. We have to appear separate so we can establish and acquire along the way. And even for the ones who never even realize any of this or even question any of this, it doesn't matter. They're still being their divine selves. As long as you're being yourself, you are doing it. To live requires no thought. You're always in the now moment. Now is no thought at all. If you're in the now, you're not thinking, you're in the now. So if you're just living your life and being yourself, you're doing it. You're doing the miracle. Not everyone's a miracle worker. Not everyone's trying to be a speaker, a starseed, or whatever, all these crazy technical terms. Not everybody wants to do that. That's fine. They're no less divine than you. They're still living the dream. They're doing the purpose. What's up, Oliver? Thank you for joining, brother. Thank you. See, many of us become frustrated when we start realizing the fact that we're in a dream. And so we begin saying, I'm done with the dream. I want to awaken from the dream and begin living in reality. And that's one of the hardest concepts to grasp for some people, is there is no such thing as a base reality. There is no such thing as one reality, one sole truth. There is no one reality. We're all sharing the same space, creating, projecting, and experiencing a different reality. And that's why, again, it's hard to grasp for some people, because, again, we don't want to feel alone. We don't want to be alone. We want others to relate to us and say, I know what you're saying. I know what you've been through. I know what you're talking about. Nobody wants to feel alone. But again, review that. Because that's what psychedelics does. Psychedelics, to its core, I feel, this is my opinion, so please don't, this is not indefinitely anything, but I feel the true core of psychedelics is trying to make people become aware of the singularity, of the oneness of everything, totally eliminating all boundary and illusion which we ever have known. It's all we've ever known. And it's taking you so deep into that oneness, because again, deep down, in all of us. We all fear to be alone, forever alone, always alone. It's always us. We all somewhat fear that. To die and go nowhere. It's always us. To be just nowhere, and it's just us. In some form or another, it all leads back to, it's all just you. You're alone. Just alone. That's why I'm telling people, really drill it into your head to review that loneliness. Why? Why is there discomfort there? Why is there resistance there? Why is there pain in that thought? There's a good poem that says loneliness is the central and inevitable fact of human existence. And it's true. We know deep down the human veil is inevitable. Our doom is inevitable. Which leads us into the unknown, the uncertain. But deep down we do know. It's all us. And so the ego will view this oneness in a sense of fear, terrified, shaken to its core. And I've said this before, this is what makes people on psychedelics cry, tremble, shake, scream, beg, plead, clutch for the ground. I mean, you've seen some crazy things on psychedelics because you are witnessing somebody experience death while still alive. It gets no more sacred, it gets no more vulnerable, it gets no more serious. That is a moment where you, as always being in control, you are in control of everything you do. Even when you decide to eat, when you decide to sleep, you're in control of everything. Well, psychedelics is about removing that control. Allowing your focal point of consciousness to just freely travel and have no idea where you're going, being in no control of where you're going for the first time ever, and being vulnerable, that vulnerable with yourself. To realize, if I don't like it here, or if I get too scared, I can't run away. I can't stop thinking about it, because what psychedelics does is it grabs your face and it rubs your nose into it, and it knows that you're discomfortable. It knows that you're uncomfortable. It knows that you're feeling pain. It knows this. So it says, good, 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 and it rubs your face into it even more, even harder. Now, some psychedelics are different because they have a more easier, loving approach into the whole, it's an illusion. But from my experience with psilocybin is one where it's not so nice. So it will literally take your head and freaking, obviously metaphorically, right? But just takes your head and crams it into whatever you're resisting, whatever your deepest fear is, whatever you are purposefully avoiding. It will just take your face and rub it into it and make you sit there and review every detail and aspect of why you do not like that. And once you have reviewed that and chose to not ignore it and go into that fear, the answer is clear. The answer is in the fear. And that's the hardest part on psilocybin. If it's your first time, realize on any form of psychedelics or DMT, you're going to be experiencing what's called a death, an ego death. A lot of people go into psychedelics, I mean, I have to raise my hand here because I was one of them. I did not expect nor know because I didn't do my research. I was in a time of suicide. I was at my lowest point. And so I figured, if I'm ready to honestly kill myself, I've already hit rock bottom. There is no lower decision than killing yourself. You cannot get any lower. So I figured, I've heard great things about mushrooms. I read no research on it, mind you. I told you, I did no research. So I didn't know what to expect. But all I went into it saying was, if I'm ready to die and kill myself, I can get no lower. So if this drug or medicine is going to kill me, well then hats off to me. Then I've just done what I wanted to do anyway. I'm just going to kill myself, so let me take this and see what's going to happen. And it sounds kind of sad, I get it, but when someone's in that place of suicide, they're at a rock bottom point, which is kind of good for psychedelics because that means you will have no resistance. Someone who resists is someone who is not ready to die. So if you are at rock bottom, there's no resistance. You are jump into that ready and willing, or so you think. But that's basically what I did. I went into it, and I didn't know I was going to experience my death. I did not know that it was natural to die while on this medicine, or psilocybin. I didn't do research. So it was telling me, you're going to die, lay down, and I fought it for a while because deep down, again, you think you're ready. Well, when your brain starts telling you to lay down because you're going to die, that's when I kind of started worrying and saying, well, holy shit, I mean, maybe I didn't want to kill myself after all. Second thoughts, but that's when it's like, oh no, hold on, we're just getting started with you. I fought it for maybe a few minutes and finally laid down and accepted, you know what? I can't do this any longer. It's driving me crazy in my mind because remember, you're only resisting yourself. So it forced me to lay down. It forced me to accept the fact that I was going to die. It forced me to let go by stirring up my mind, stirring it up so intensely to where you have no choice but to let go. And you do so, and you leave behind everything you once knew. You leave behind the self which you've known since you're starting. Since the first word that's come out of your mouth, this is what you've known, this body. And now you've had that taken from you, and you're left scrambling for that self which you've known your whole life, only to find it's not there. But if it's not there, how am I still talking to myself? And that's what you're kind of asking. If I'm dead and Tyler's gone, I'm still talking to myself and alive. That means there is no death. And the more you let go, the higher you rise, the higher you see, the more you see, the more in depth. Because there's no resistance and you're just witnessing. But this is why people have gone into psychedelics or DMT medicine and come out changed, entirely changed. Most of the people, most of them, I'm not going to speak for everyone obviously, but most of the people who do seek out psychedelics are looking for an assistance in healing trauma, unresolved pain. It can be depression, it can be wanting answers. I mean, everyone has their own thing, but most of the people there are feeling a great deal of pain and discomfort. And that's why most people seek out a change, is that pain and discomfort. If I don't like this feeling, well, I need to seek out a change and change that, right? So they'll seek out psychedelics as an assistant. And I especially recommend this for people who are suicidal, because what this does is it takes you into the depths of what you call death, and it shakes you to your core and allows you to have that clarity into why you exist here as the body of Tyler or whatever your name is. Because remember, our problems exist in the ego of the birth name. So we're dwelling in that birth name. Poor me, this, and life is so hard, and life is this and that. And please forgive me, I'm not trying to speak on everyone who's depressed and suicidal. I know everybody has their own, thing, and this is a topic I take very serious, because obviously I've been there myself. I've lost 3 friends to suicide, so it's not a topic I take lightly. It's actually a very passionate topic of mine. So I apologize, I didn't mean to say that in a rude way. But just, it's just, if you are ready to die, you can get no lower than actually making the choice to do so. But before you make that choice and just jump, go into psychedelics. I'm just saying, if you have nothing else to lose, and this is a disclaimer for me, I'm not responsible for anyone's actions here, but for me, it absolutely transformed my life. It took me into this depressed, victimized person and just totally rebirthed me into this powerful being of love, where I feel the love, I see the love in everything now because I see it in myself, and it was something that I didn't think I had. I was walking around posing the fact that I needed a companion for my other half. I was half. I was half to a companion, and I was half to God. And I was walking around in this victimized role. And that's what I didn't realize, is that most of the problems, or if not all of them, were me dwelling in my ego. Just simply, and that's what Jim Carrey says, when we feel depression, a lot of the times it's just your ego tapping you and saying, hey, I'm ready to stop playing this game. I want to be somebody different now. But we have to pay attention to that. Pay attention to ourselves. But the medicine can absolutely transform your life. If you are ready, if you are seeking answers, if you're seeking clarity, healing, absolutely. It's the most powerful medicine on the face of the earth, quite literally. I'm going to wrap up this video though, because I think this is going on a 2-hour video now. So I'm going to wrap up this video. Thank you to everyone who's been watching on and off. Thank you to everyone who shared this video. I appreciate that. Shares are the most important to me. I'm so thankful for that. I keep getting blocked in all my groups sharing and stuff, so I don't know who the one person is that's constantly reporting my content, but it's getting me blocked from sharing. So to everyone who does share, I appreciate it, because I cannot do it myself, literally. I'm getting blocked on this website, so. If you enjoyed the video, though, I appreciate it. Maybe drop a share on here. My YouTube channel is Red Pill Rabbit Hole. Facebook is Tyler Ugaldi. If you have any questions, thoughts, ideas, feedback, anything, feel free to message me. Again, I'm not encouraging psychedelics, the use of drugs, or any type of thing on this video. I'm just offering advice and help, assistance, tools, techniques for anyone else trying to see beyond their own boundary and illusion. Everyone have a good weekend. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for listening. Go become what you are. Go become what you are. By simply realizing. Realize.